If you've ever suffered any kind of family dysfunction, I think this message is going to mean something to you. Joseph, although he at one point becomes the second most important guy in all of Egypt, did not have an easy home life. His home life was actually a mess. His father had 4 women in his life. His father loved one of those women more than the rest, and his father loved him more than all of his brothers. It says this in scripture. Now Israel, that's Jacob, Joseph's father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made a richly ornamented robe for him. So you can't sin in a vacuum. You would think that, hey, I can do this or I can do that, and it doesn't affect anyone else. In this case, the favoritism spills over into the brothers. It says, when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him, and they could not speak a kind word to him. Not only could they not speak a kind word to him, they get to a point where they sell him to human traffickers as a slave to Egypt. How do you get to that point? Well, let me ask you, how would you feel if you knew your father had another woman in his life and it wasn't your mother and he loved that woman more than your mom? How would you feel if you're working for your father and you're maybe in your mid to late 20s and then you get a new supervisor and that supervisor is your littlest brother? How would you feel if your father seems to give the right of the firstborn not to the oldest or the second or all the way down through 10, but to the youngest? How would that make you feel? How would you feel if no matter what you did, no matter how hard you tried, you know your father will never like you or love you like he loves your brother? So how does it get to this point? Bitterness is a strange thing when we read about it in the Bible. The way the Bible describes it, it's like a poison that we take that eats our insides. And it's the strangest of sins because we do it. We have resentment and we have bitterness in order to hurt other people. But what happens is we just hurt ourselves. So how do you get past this? Nelson Mandela, you may know him from South Africa. He was in prison for hard labor for 26 years. And in those 26 years, he is stuck and he's working and he's smashing rocks. But he finally gets out. And they wondered if he was going to wreak revenge on the people who had put him in prison. But he says this, as I walked out of the door towards the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew that if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I would still be in prison. Has bitterness imprisoned you? Is the poison of resentment eating you from the inside? There's a reason why the Bible tells us to get rid of all bitterness. It says this in the book of Ephesians. Get rid of all bitterness, this poison. And just a bit later, it says, be kind. There's a better way. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, not any way you want, but just as Christ has forgiven you.